when people are specific, and I see this through the thousands of people I've worked with, when they're specific and they tell the universe exactly what they want. If they want to heal the big toe of their right foot, your intention should be, my intention is to heal the big toe of my right foot and be healthy and well in every way. Tell the universe exactly what you want, and it's more likely to occur.
Peace and riches blessings. I am Michael B. Beckwith, the host of Take Back Your Mind. Peace and blessings, everybody, and welcome to Take Back Your Mind. I am your host, Michael B. Beckwith, the founder of the Agape International Spiritual Center. And always we're seeking to become keenly aware that we're not our minds, but we have one. And that oftentimes our minds are hijacked by worry, doubt, fear, all manner of things that aren't true, but become a dimension of our law. We want to take back our mind. And today, guess what? I have Lynne McTaggart with me. Let me tell you a little bit about her. We haven't seen each other in a while, but we know each other very well. She's one of the most central authorities on the new science and consciousness, and the award-winning author of 7 books, including the worldwide bestsellers, The Field, The Intention Experiment, and The Power of 8. He's also co-founder of the international magazine, What Doctors Don't Tell You, the Health Expo, Get Well, and the architect of intention experiments, which are very important, a web-based global laboratory to test the power of intention to heal the world. A sought-after public speaker, she is consistently listed as one of the 100 most spiritually influential people. Lynne, welcome.
Thank you so much, Michael. It's wonderful to be here with you.
Absolutely. Let's jump right into the field. When you give us an overview of that, when we talk about the field, people use that word a lot these days.
They do. And it really goes back to how we see our world. We've been taught since we were little kids that the world is filled with solid, separate things, which are very well-behaved things, operating according to fixed laws in time and space. That's what we've been told in our scientific story for more than 300 years. And it was told to us by Isaac Newton. And right. So we see our world as separate. But the bottom line is that we're not separate. Now, a lot of people say, yeah, we're all one. But actually, it's true, because at our nethermost level of being, our subatomic particles are actually vibrating packets of energy, trading energy with other little packets of energy. And that gives rise to an enormous quantum energy field, which I called the field. And there's 2 big implications here, Michael. Number one, a field is made up of these vibrating entities, which are also waves. Waves have a capacity to carry a near infinite amount of information. I mean, think about it. The Library of Congress, which has every book in English in the world, could fit onto a sugar cube if it was encoded in waves. But secondly, so we have a big mothership of information out there that we're part of. But the other thing is that waves go on to practically infinity. So the fact that we are part of this giant field means that we can access information all the time beyond our senses. And that gives us a neat picture of how we can do things beyond our senses, including the power of intention.
Right. Now, you just explained a lot. So we're in a field of, call it intelligence. We're in a field of life. And we also, as individuals, we have a field of our own too, right? Where we project the field. Like you can pick up the field of people. You can measure it, the things of that particular nature.
Oh, absolutely. We are broadcasters. I like to say we're leaky buckets.
Yeah.
We are sending out energy all the time. And our thoughts, for instance, and we've got about 70,000 of them every day, are things. And not only things, but things that affect other things. And that was the big subject of a lot of my work. It's been the big subject of a lot of my work, including the intention experiment, to try to figure out how far we can take this. Are we talking about just shifting a quantum particle, or are we talking about curing cancer with our thoughts? So, yes, we are entities that have a field of information. Lots of scientists talk about light emissions that come
Mhm.
out of our body, a tiny current of light. And we have that light is a conversation of its own, and other living things and other human beings are sending light back synchronicitously. They've measured this, they've demonstrated this. We're talking German physicists here. But we know we are sending out that light. We have this field ourselves, and it's being replied to.
Hmm. So it basically relates to how you got involved with intention in the intention experiment. I imagine there are some conditions that must be met in order for intention to really uh, be very powerful. So how did you get involved in intention in the first place, and what are some of those conditions?
Okay, I have a good question. I was minding my own business, being a journalist, an investigative reporter. When I started out my work in my 20s, my plan was to put bad guys in jail. And so I did undercover work, back in the days when you had tape recorders. I had hidden tape recorders, and I busted baby selling rings around the world. And that was all the stuff I was doing. But I got interested in health when I moved over to the UK. And I got interested in what didn't work in modern medicine, as well as alternatives in medicine. And that got me to studying a lot of studies, good studies, really well done studies of spiritual healing. And I kept wondering, how can you have a thought, send it to someone else, and make them better? That's what spiritual healing is essentially. And I thought, wow, I need to find out how far we can take it. And so that investigation, talking to scientists around the world, became my book, The Field. But there was a lot of unfinished business as far as I was concerned. As I said earlier, how far can we take this?
Right.
Can I fly up on my roof with my thoughts? Can I cure cancer with my thoughts? And I was also interested in the whole idea of what happened when lots of people have the same thought at the same time. Does that magnify the effect? So I decided to test this because at the time I knew a lot of scientists working in consciousness research. I'd interviewed them for The Field. And I also had a decent number of readers. The Field was in 30 languages. So I started thinking to myself, well, if I just put them together, I'll have the biggest global laboratory in the world testing intention. So that's what I did. In 2007, I wrote a book called The Intention Experiment, which was an invitation for people to come on board every so often when I'd set up an experiment with one of those scientists, and we'd have them all collectively send an intention to that particular target. And we've done 41 to date, everything from trying to make seeds grow faster, to purifying water, to lowering violence in war-torn areas or violent areas, a number of them in America, to healing someone of post-traumatic stress disorder. And of those 37, we worked with a variety of scientists.
Mm.
Of those 41 experiments, 37 have shown measurable, positive, mostly significant effects.
Mm.
So just to put that in context, there's no pharmaceutical drug out there with that kind of consistent track record.
Absolutely. What are the favorable conditions? I mean, what do you set up for people to actually establish an intention? If an individual wants to establish intention for their own life or group, what are the conditions that you teach?
Well, I teach loads of them in different courses, but I would say the number one condition is people aren't specific enough. A
Mm,
lot of people say, well, I want to leave room for the universe to decide. In my mind, that is essentially prayer. And there's an important distinction. There's a lot of overlap with prayer and intention, but there's one big distinction I've found, which is, prayer is very much a "Thy will be done." Asking a higher power to do
mhm,
this and
mhm,
to help you. With intention, it's a respectful request to the universe, in my view.
mhm,
And so, what we found in the intention experiment is when we just sent love to water, for instance, nothing happened. When we sent an intention to make it more alkaline by 1 pH,
mm,
then it happened and it worked really well. And we've seen that as well in my smaller groups, my Power of Eight groups, where I shrunk the whole thing down to people doing intention in small groups of 8 or so. When people are specific, and I see this through the thousands of people I've worked with, when they're specific and they tell the universe exactly what they want. If they want to heal the big toe of their right foot, your intention should be, my intention is to heal the big toe of my right foot and be healthy and well in every way. Tell the universe exactly what you want, and it's more likely to occur.
mhm,
So there's that. There's also mind states that are very different from meditation. A lot of people think intention is essentially meditation. But we've done brainwave studies working with a team of neuroscientists from Life University, which is the largest chiropractic university in the world. And they put a team of neuroscientists at our disposal that were interested in these Power of Eight groups. So we got a batch of student volunteers who had never done any of this before, including meditation, put an EEG cap on one member of each Power of Eight group. I believe we had 7 groups. And these guys were total novices. I gave them some instruction, and then they did an intention for someone in the group with a health challenge. And afterward, our neuroscience team were absolutely astonished, as was I. We all thought these brainwave signatures were going to look exactly like those of meditation, where you increase slower brain waves.
mhm,
But that wasn't what happened at all. What happened was a decrease in loads of brain waves, particularly the parts of the brain,
mm,
like the parietal lobes that sit toward the back of your head. They help us navigate through space. They tell us, this is me, this is not me. They were dialed way down. And so were the parts of the brain, the right frontal lobes, that are involved in worry, doubt, negativity.
mm.
They were dialed way down. So these brainwave signatures look nothing like meditation, but what they looked like was almost identical to work done by the University of Pennsylvania on Buddhist monks during ecstatic prayer and Sufi masters during chanting. These people, even though they were novices, even though they were only doing this intention for 10 minutes, were in a state of what could be recognized a state of ecstatic oneness. And
Mhm.
that is what I think is the big secret sauce to group intention.
And so, what when you have them establish intention, you're having one become specific about something they're requesting, and then two, there's something a mindset you're describing. So, if you were to tell the people that were listening right now to establish an intention, what would you say?
It's not meditation. It's not trying to block out your mind. It's filling your mind
Okay,
with that intention. It's a state of highly focused oneness. I teach
I like
people
that.
to achieve
Highly
that.
focused oneness. I like that. Highly focused oneness. Yeah, I like that.
It is. And flooding your mind with that, also realizing you are part of this group. So the intentions that I do, really focus on group intention, whether it's 25,000 people intending to end the war in Gaza, or it is a group of 8 trying to heal somebody in the group with cancer, for instance, or depression or financial problems or wanting a new job. So we all focus together at the same time, holding the same intention. It's also not a mind state per se, even though you formulate the intention, it's a heart state.
Okay.
It gets sent out from your heart with a loving intention toward that target, toward that person.
What is the power of 8? Why that number? What pulled you into that dynamic?
Complete accident, Michael. I was discussing this with my husband, Brian Hubbard, one day when we had seen a lot of really good positive outcomes with the intention experiment. This was back in 2008. So I said, I need to shrink this down and try to do something like this in a workshop, but I'm not sure what to do. And I'm kicking it around with Brian and a couple of members of my team. And I said, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll put them in groups of 8 or so and have their intention to some member of the group with a health challenge. And my husband's a journalist too, and he's a really good headline writer and as well as a good writer. And he said, I love it, the power of 8. And that is literally how it started. That's how it started. We put people into groups of 8 in our first workshop in Chicago, doing this, and expecting it to be, a nice little feel-good effect, like getting your back massaged by somebody as they walk by. That's what we thought. And so we did it one day on a Saturday at the end of the day, put people in groups of 8, had them send intention to somebody with a health challenge. Next day, we had them come back, expected them to talk about, oh, that was nice, like a facial. That's not what happened. People came back and said, I have terrible arthritis. And we remembered that woman had been limping. And it feels like it's healed today. I'm walking normally. Somebody else said, I have terrible gut issues. I have IBS. My gut feels cleared. Somebody else, I have depression. I suffer from periodic depression, really chronic, and it feels like it's lifted. Somebody else, and this really blew our mind, I have cataracts, and they're about 80% better. So I didn't believe a word of this. I thought, placebo effect. I come from that hard-nosed journalistic skepticism. So I needed to find out why and more. And so I kept doing it in groups, group after group after group. In fact, I think I was just starting to do it when I met you at the group that we both belonged to.
Right.
I was practicing, experimenting, and studying it because I thought, wait a minute, I'm not a healer. I'm a journalist. And why is this working? I'm putting people in groups of 8 and they're healing. The lame are walking. I've had 2 people get up out of their wheelchairs after a single 10-minute intention. One woman paralyzed with idiopathic paralysis from the neck down came to a conference in a wheelchair, motorized wheelchair, gets up at the end and talks about it. We have it on video. I had somebody else with multiple sclerosis who pushed her wheelchair away after one intention. And thousands of people now who have healed genetic issues, incurable issues, stage 4 cancer. Had a woman come to a retreat of ours who had 3 months to live, wasn't even going to come, came with her husband, her son. They did an intention in the first day of that retreat for her. And she came out of the intention saying, I'm healed. And this is somebody who had refused to have chemotherapy or radiotherapy or surgery, was a naturopath. And she went home, and these were doctors who said it was so disseminated, and they said they couldn't find any afterward. It was, we hear story after story after story about this, about people getting financial windfalls, finding love in their lives. One of my favorite stories was a woman called Joy, who met with her Power Bait group and said, I really want more love in my life. I really want to find somebody. And, she was a woman in her 60s. So they do this intention for her. This is during lockdown.
Mm.
Out of the blue, her boyfriend from 35 years ago gives her a call. They start chatting. He's in the UK. She is in Australia. They start chatting, they start writing, they start connecting. And he makes the big decision to come to Australia, go through quarantine for 2 weeks, and then move in with her. And they are happily ever after now. So we hear this all the time too.
So this is beautiful. So these particular testimonies that you just mentioned, were these people in these power way, were they specifically dealing with those issues, or were they holding the intention for perfect health, or were they holding the intention to eliminate multiple sclerosis? How specific was it?
Oh, totally is specific. We
Mhm.
use positive language like our intention is that Jane Doe be immediately, completely, and permanently healed of all traces of multiple sclerosis, for instance. That would be one way of doing it. Um, so they're always highly specific. And a number of the people I talked about were people who were part of a course of mine. So they were learning all the different things, and I'd put them in Power of Eight groups. What we do with one of our longest courses, it's a year long, is we find out what their time zones are, put them together with people in a similar or identical time zone. And the assignment is they meet with their Power of Eight group every week for a year,
Mhm.
and as well as get all of the, many weeks of instruction from me. So the reason we do that is what I find is there is a magical, alchemical effect that happens in small groups and large groups too. One of the big things for me that just blew my mind, and were one reason why it took me 10 years to get up the courage to write a book about all of this. I didn't publish a book about this till 10 years after it first happened. I observed it. I needed to measure it. I needed to understand it. And I had to figure out why. Why is this happening? It's not me doing this. These are the groups. And so the key thing here is that state of ecstatic oneness. There's also another big piece here that is really important that people don't talk about very much, Michael, and that is altruism.
Mm.
When you're doing an intention, most of the time in a Power of Eight group, you're intending for someone else. If you're in a group of eight, 7/8 of the time, you're intending for someone else in the group. And what I found in that, and also the big intention experiments, is that the senders get healed too. So a lot of the times when people are stuck, I will say very boldly to them, get off of yourself.
You're
You
right.
know, remember, do an intention for someone else who needs
Right.
it more. I mean, I remember, well, probably the most wonderful story I heard about this was a guy called Wes Chapman. I met him at age 65. This was a really tragic story. He had been at college studying biochemistry. He was going to be a doctor or a biochemist when he got called up in the very last year of the Vietnam War.
Mm.
Now, this was at a time where you couldn't take a student deferment. So he had to go. And he was right there in the front line. And the whole experience was so traumatizing for him that he came home, quit college, and his life proceeded to go in a total downward spiral. Even meeting the love of his life, his second wife, didn't last long. She developed a fast-growing brain cancer, and he lost her and lost his house paying for all her medical expenses.
Mm.
So by the time I met him, he had given up. It was kind of, what's the use? And it was hard for him to even get out of bed. So I had recruited people from a New Science church, Mile High Church, to be part of a little experiment. I got 2 groups of 8 people together. Wes was one group. He was going to put himself forward because he suffered from ongoing chronic depression. But there was a woman in the group with stage late stage cancer, possibly stage 4, and he thought she's more deserving. So he was one of the senders. So that night he goes to bed, he gets up in the next morning, and he said all of his senses were heightened, like the grass has never been greener, the flowers have never smelled sweeter. He was also had become really a hermit, but in that after that time, he started walking around being much more engaging and social, saying, "Hi, how are you?" But then the next night, he has a dream. He called it almost a vision, where he's meeting his 19-year-old self back on campus in his favorite place. And the 19-year-old self essentially says to him, "Don't worry, there's still time." And the next day he wakes up and he said it was a bit like being Scrooge on Christmas morning. He's running around saying hi to everybody. He's suddenly filled with all the energy in the world. He wants to get up. He wants to do stuff. He re-engages with all kinds of exercise. He said, I got to get into shape if I'm going to connect with that 19-year-old self again. He starts joining classes, he starts writing again, he starts engaging with his church. He's a completely different person. And this was from sending intention, not even receiving it. And I see that all the time. I see people who are stuck. They get off of themselves, send intention to someone else, their life changes.
Absolutely. We see that a lot when people are depressed and they begin to give energy to someone else or serve someone else. That energy seems to change, and obviously the chemicals of their body changes, and wonderful changes take place. So you're talking about specificity, altruism, and what was another one? There was a kind of a heart coherence or something.
Yeah, I do different things from Heart Math, who do the heart coherence. What I find is the group itself is heart-centered. That is one of the big key elements of a small group. Meeting together, doing intention week after week. I hear these amazing stories from the groups. For instance, during lockdown, I love this guy called Jerry, who joined the group. Now, this is the middle of lockdown. Nobody can see anybody else. And he met with them every week on Zoom, as most of my groups meet virtually, not together. A lot of these groups have met for years and years, and they've never actually physically met each other. But so he meets week after week. And at the end, he says, I've had more love during the COVID season than I've ever had in my life before. I now know what love is. Wow. And that is the big thing that I think people take from this, is this sense of giving selflessly, of receiving with an open heart. You've got a group of strangers who don't know you, but every week they've got your back. They want to find out what's going on with you. I know one guy, Mitchell, told me he was having trouble sleeping one time, and Robert, who he got close to in his group, said, "Don't worry, I had you covered. I was intending for you last night." And it's that kind of thing that happens all the time. We don't get to have community very often anymore.
Yeah.
We are increasingly isolated. So I think that's one of the great pieces. But there's another element that's extraordinary about the sending that I want to share with you about the intention experiment. When I started them in 2007, I had these initial results with seeds and leaves, and I got a little tired of seeds and leaves. And I started talking to the scientists and said, let's do something huge. Let's end a war somewhere. So we decided to do an intention for Sri Lanka, which was undergoing a 25-year war. It was intractable. Nobody was getting anywhere. And so we did it. And it was the first time that I decided to survey the participants. And I've done that ever since. Just to see how it was for them. Were they able to get on? We were running them from my website at the time. Now, interesting things happened with that that experiment. We had a University of California professor of statistics do all the analysis, and violence went up sharply during our week of intention, which worried me enormously, but then it plummeted. And the reason it went up is we found that the government had won a number of decisive battles during that very week of our intention that turned around the entire course of the war.
Mm.
And within a few months, this 25-year war was over. Did we do this? Short answer, who knows? Lots of variables here. But we've seen this over and over again.
Wow.
Even St. Louis, Missouri, the most violent place in America, we did an intention back in the end of 2017. And every neighborhood around, and St. Louis as a whole, continued to have violence that had gone up, kept going up 3 years before, and continued to go up 6 months afterward. But the neighborhood we focused on, officially the most violent neighborhood in all of the most violent city in America, that violence went down by 43%. But that isn't the most interesting part of the story. The thing I really wanted to tell you about is what happened to the participants, because they started reporting things like their lives were becoming more peaceful. They were making up with estranged partners and children. They were getting along better with bosses and coworkers. And it was about 40% of them. But the big killer statistic, about half, and this happens with every intention experiment, say they feel more love for everyone they come in contact with. Mm-hmm. And that, to me, is the big mind blower. It's this huge rebound effect, including physical healings. About a third of our participants of every intention experiment report an improvement or even a cure in some physical ailment. So it's that huge act of coming together to do something altruistic is, one of the big healers in life.
Yeah. We discovered that a lot here at Agape in our community, healings that you're describing. We have a silent, what they call a silent light ministry. It's for the deaf. And nice. 3 of our signers, 2 of them had breast cancer, and they thought they wanted to just give, and they got healed signing during the services. And then we had another individual that was in a wheelchair, and she decided she wanted to share that way, and she's no longer in the wheelchair. She now walks. But they attribute it to them giving, to being in that energy of the community, translating the talks, and then just because of their generosity, something happened in their body temples. So I know exactly what you're talking about here. Have you found changes in people's lifestyle as well, or traits, not just like physical traits, but habits and things like that, where they wanted to really transcend the habits of the old self as well?
Oh, totally. I mean, part of the survey is finding out what happened in their life. A lot of them quit their jobs. They say, "Nuh-uh, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm working for the Peace Corps, or I'm setting up a nonprofit. I'm doing something more important and giving in my life." I see amazing transformations. They accept themselves far better. They love themselves far more. They love the world far more. So I see these big changes, and I see the same thing with the people taking the courses, people as part of the Power of 8 groups too, where they say, "No, I want more meaning in my life. I've seen meaning. I've seen real healing here, and I've seen real camaraderie here and love." And this is, something that people can't just take in and carry on the old life of getting and spending, or, or eat or be eaten. They can't just do that anymore. They have to change and go for a more meaningful life.
Absolutely. I've said over the years that so many people suffer from attention deficit disorder. That they wake up and they have no intention. They kind of just react to circumstances and situations in their life on a survival level, but they're not intending anything. They're just like reacting to the world. And so you've taken this to a whole nother level, because you're saying not only be intentional, but add some specificity to it on a regular basis, which is what
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just finished one class, an advanced class, where I was helping people look at intention for the rest of their lives.
Yes.
So let's intend the ideal rest of your life. Do you even know what you want? Most people don't. Most people, as you say, are happy to be buffeted along like a little boat in a storm and just kind of take whatever wave comes at them. And that's one thing to do. But I do find when people are intentional, they drive their car. They drive their own car then. Now, we can't stop bad things happening from us. I could walk out tomorrow and get run over by a bus, in which case I'd really be happy for all the best in high-tech medicine to put me back together again. But
Well,
I can't.
the world of phenomena is spinning, so things are happening. But when you're
Yeah,
living an intention life, there's kind of a field that allows for greater possibilities to take place. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, this is a possibility for everyone, but I really encourage people to do Power of Eight groups. And they don't just have to do it for themselves or even for that group. I mean, one of the other things that I started was, with all of the problems happening politically, our leaders don't seem to have great answers at the moment. And there's so much division that I started to think called the Eight Revolution, because I started thinking, boy, do we need an army of change makers.
Yes.
They're going to make a difference. And then I thought, well, I probably have one already. I haven't tapped into. There's tens of thousands of Power of Eight groups. What if they all got together and started doing stuff? So I've just provided free tools. It's on my website in my community page, lynnmctaggart.com. And just for people to start using this stuff and healing their neighborhoods. But here's something else that totally blew my mind that happened too. I started experimenting with polarized people, seeing if enemies, would this change them? So one of the times I did, and this is a good time to talk about this, was I had the opportunity to use special equipment where I could put cameras in different locations. So we put a camera in 8 conference rooms in 8 Arab cities in different Arab countries. And the 9th camera we had in an audience of Israeli Jews. Now, I had to broker this whole deal because neither side were talking to the other. They're hated enemies. So I did, and I ran an intention with both of them, with everyone, and they could see me, I could see them, and I could call on the individual conference rooms, et cetera, to talk, and they could talk to everybody. So we did an intention to lower violence in Jerusalem, which was experiencing a lot of violence. Then I talked to them afterward, and to my absolute amazement, they started sending love to each other. They started saying, your God is my God. They started saying, we love you, brothers and sisters. And this big love fest happened. And we had done this in one of the anniversaries for 9/11 too, with Arabs and Americans. Again, starting to send love and forgiveness to each other for 9/11. This was some years ago. And so I started realizing, wow, maybe just this act of coming together is one way of overcoming the terrible polarization we see in so many areas of our lives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've covered a lot of material. We need to cover more, but I know we're running out of a little time. But you have a couple of events coming up that
I do.
I want people to know about.
Thank you so much. We have an online course called Intention Essentials. So if you're new to my work, even if you've studied with other teachers, I teach you the 7 key attention essentials to really having a focused, intentional life. So that is starting mid-June, June 15th, and it runs for every Saturday for 5 weeks. Then there's a big mentoring meeting with me where you get to be coached, and we work together to practice and hone in on all of those skills. So you can find out more about that on my website, lynnmctaggart.com. That's Intention Essentials. For people who want to work with me in person, we have a big retreat called Heal Your Past. And this is happening, it's happening in Yorkshire, in England, in the runner-up location for Downton Abbey. So it's this giant mansion where you can actually stay with 4-poster beds and wonderful big, old-fashioned bathtubs, etc. But it's also a very spiritual place with the owners are really into all of our stuff. So they've created labyrinths and wonderful fire pits and beautiful meeting rooms, yoga, spa, etc., and 3,000 acres of extraordinary Yorkshire dales. There's sheep on the hills. So that's happening September 1st. And I do a lot of retro intention work. Also work with my husband, Brian Hubbard, the author of the book, The Untrue Story of You, and the originator of a time-light method to heal your past. So together, we help people really drop the dead donkey, drop the thing in their past that is holding them back, and holding them back, and so that they can move forward. And we've run it for a number of years now, and we see extraordinary changes there too.
Beautiful.
And they can find out more on my website, lynnmctaggart.com.
lynnmctaggart.com.
That's it. That's the one. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for being with us this morning and this evening where you are, and I appreciate you. And everyone, go to her website and begin to live an intentional life. Don't be a bystander in your own life. Actually intend the life you want to live. Begin to feel it, begin to sense it, and add the level of altruism. Want good things for other people, and watch the good boomerang back at you, because this is a return to sender universe. Lynn, thank you for being with us today.
It's been such a pleasure, Michael. Thank you.
We'll talk soon.
We will.
Bye-bye. Dynamic blessings to you, and this is our moment, a couple of moments of meditation. Extremely important that we, on a regular basis, pull our attention away from the world of appearances and circumstances and situations, even people, places, and things, and turn within, where we develop a level of coherence around life, whatever you want to call life. Love, beauty, intelligence, God. Doesn't matter what you call it. Life itself is conscious of itself, and we are infinite individual expressions of this pure consciousness. So meditation is extremely important. And since I had a wonderful guest, Lynne McTaggart, we're going to invite us to be not only going to meditation, but to establish some kind of intention for our life today, or for this particular day, okay? So let us stop in this moment. Let's turn within. Extract your attention from the world. Extract your attention from where you are going to go and what you're going to do when these few moments are complete. Release your overactive mind around your past, and just be right here where your breath is. Your breath is happening presently. It's not in the future. This breath is not in the past, it's present. So we stop. And let us let us establish a couple of intentions in our life. Consider your body temple. Scan it. If there is any particular area where there is disharmony, pain, dis-ease, allow yourself to intend the perfect healing of your body temple. Don't wish it, intend it. Intend that your body temple is perfectly whole and healthy. If you want to focus on any particular area, please do so. Don't ask how this is to happen. Just intend that it is happening. Now add a little of altruism for this. Think of somebody in your life and intend that they are perfectly healthy. So you are intending for yourself, and you're spreading the good around. You're intending for someone else. So as you've pulled away from the world, knowing that you are an avenue of awareness, you are aware of your intention. You're not suffering from an intention deficit disorder. You are intending that your body temple and a specific area, if necessary, is perfectly whole and complete. With simultaneous awareness, you're now intending that someone else you know about that needs this moment, their body temple is perfectly whole and complete. Now just generally intend that this day, this week, this month, this year, this life is a life full of joy and happiness, prosperity, wellness, well-being. Intend it. And once again, intend this for someone else as well. And what do? We allow this to be. It's happening now. And we give thanks that this is so. And so it is. Amen. Thank you for tuning in to our meditation portion of Take Back Your Mind. It belongs to you, not to the world. Peace and blessings. I appreciate your letters and emails that you've been sending in, but also the notes you're sending on the Instagram and on the website, thanking me for Take Back Your Mind. And I thank you for your support As I've said before, if you want to support Take Back Your Mind, support the sponsors. The main sponsor is the Agape International Spiritual Center, agapelive.com. We have a Facebook presentation, an Instagram presentation, a YouTube presentation, and a website presentation. You can donate to the sponsor at agapelive.com. It's one way that you can donate. It supports the podcast. Second sponsor is Nutrarise.com. You go to Nutrarise.com, those 3 lines up at the top, you touch that line, and you'll get Adaptozen. Adaptozen are my products. The Super Green Superfood Greens and the vitamin D3, K2. Both extremely good for your health, your nutrition. You support the sponsors, you're supporting the podcast. Have a beautiful, and as I like to say, a bright day, luminous day, because you are a luminous being. Peace and blessings. Your time is very valuable, so I want to thank you for lending us your ear and participating in Taking Back Your Mind. If you want to submit a question for the question of the week, please submit it to podcast@michaelbeckwith.com. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, please submit a review and let us know your thoughts. Stay on top of current episodes by subscribing to the podcast so that you'll receive alerts and not miss one single episode. And feel free to share this podcast with all of your friends and family. And until we meet again, take back your mind, and you will take back your life. Peace and blessings.